Hey, this is D-Night.
This is Ty.
Carol is MIA. She's pooped. She had a long week and understandably needs a day off, but she'll be back next week. And you're listening to the Part of the Insurrection podcast. I know you're like, who the fuck is Carol? Anyway, yeah, so it was a week. Obviously, Trump's been convicted of numerous crimes in his hush money election interference case in New York, and there's been quite a bit of fallout politically for him ever since. Ty, I'll let you take it away.
Yes. So we're going to start with Trump's poll flops. Since Trump was found guilty in his New York hush money election interference trial in Manhattan, 3 separate polls have suggested Trump's guilty verdict has hurt his electoral chances because being a rapist and an insurrectionist wasn't enough. But and Ipsos Reuters poll of 2,135 registered voters conducted between May 30th and 31st found that in a two-way race, 41% would vote for Trump's Democratic rival, Joe Biden, if the election were held today. Trump, on the other hand, would garner 39% of the vote. Echelon Insights poll of 477 likely voters, sure, none of them were Democrats because they don't ask us, also conducted...
We don't answer our phones, Ty. We millennials and shit.
Also conducted between May 30th and May 31st found that 49% would vote for Biden, while 47% would vote for Trump. Previously, the pollsters found the pair tied, with both on 47% of the vote share. A Morning Consult poll of 2,200 registered voters found that 45% would vote for Biden, while 44% would vote for Trump. The poll conducted on May 31st showed Biden gaining 3 percentage points up from May 28th.
Yes.
And also, what the fuck?
Yes, look, I know it's a lot closer than we would all like, but in terms of movement in the polls, it's been all towards Biden, and over the course of just a few days, that's actually a massive impact, because in this political landscape, nothing moves the polls, especially not overnight. And since we're seeing, well, first of all, sample size aside, like I wouldn't put too much into the small sample size of these polls, but the fact that it's moving, period, does suggest that this is harmful to Trump's electoral chances. But bigger picture, I think this is a cue that whatever the media is saying about Biden not leaning into Trump being a convicted felon is probably wrong. The Trump campaign, rather the Biden campaign, should be leaning into this in every way possible. And maybe not in terms of like the federal investigations, but this particular instance where Trump was convicted, this is damaging shit. So you got to like constantly hammer it home. And then the way that news media filters information down to voters, like it's not entirely likely that the voters will get the entire story if the Trump campaign continues putting out its propaganda campaign and it's not addressed by Biden and the Democrats on the other side.
No, absolutely. And did you see what Lisa Murkowski had tweeted? And, she was like, which is absolutely true, 100% true, where she said, we wouldn't be here if we put up a viable fucking Republican candidate. And right now I feel like all Republicans are trash. However, some candidates like Asa Hutchinson, and though I really can't stand even Chris Christie, that would have been better candidates and had a real chance to swing the independent voters, to swing those on the fence and the moderates, if they had put them up aside from Trump. I mean, we knew this was coming.
Yeah, I mean,
we knew this was coming for him.
It's insane that they didn't do a better job immediately after January 6th of getting together and picking a handful of just replacements for Trump to like lead the party into the
But
2024
exactly, like
election.
and getting behind them, like, okay, even if he wasn't convicted by the Senate and thrown out, they still could have pivoted and thrown their support behind
Anybody,
any of
literally any one of
the
them.
other
They could have
candidates. And
they
it's
could
like, you
have
know
they
what,
could have
this dude
drawn
ain't it.
straws. They could have drawn straws and like
Yeah.
just five random Republicans. You guys are the future of the fucking party. Like take it away. But instead, they immediately like regrouped and pledged their loyalty and fealty to Trump, and he let them. You know, they let him run roughshod over the party. Now he's got control of all the money. He's got control of the RNC. They're fucking doomed
And
in
and I was and I
2020.
was looking today, I think, and they were like that the RNC has raised X amount of dollars and are still in the red because of, like, all the down ballot candidates and stuff. And I read something today that, so the GOP controlled legislature here in Texas, they have put forth legislation that will basically make it impossible for a Democrat to win. So even if they win their race, it's not going to count. It's going to red counties to decide the winner of the race. What
Uh,
the actual fuck?
Yeah, well, look, that's what we have to look forward to if Republicans win in 2024. Brother, they'll just like in 2028, all of the elections in red states will be rigged for GOP candidates, no matter what the outcome of the election is. And we'll have, a brand new bevy of Trump appointed Supreme Court justices to ensure that, those laws stand and you'll never have another free and fair election again. Just, something to look forward to. If you don't get deported or put in a detention camp in the second Trump administration.
Well, when I was wearing my scarf, and I guess I look Dominican or Haitian.
No one
So,
no one knows what you're talking about. You got to explain the context. When were you wearing your scarf?
well, Trump has been very explicit that he wants to bring Operation Wetback back. But I went to Juarez to get my daughter some antibiotics. And it was like 8 a.m, dropped the boys off to school, and I go and I got my scarf on, no lace front. And when I'm walking back across the bridge, I get caught up in the migrants. And so it's like 300 people like coming back over, and the border patrol and shit is there. And I'm like, oh goddamn, like what's gonna happen, here. With me going back over. But the rules and shit that Greg Abbott and Ken Pax are doing here in Texas, and we've been pretty insulated here in El Paso because we're far off, There you see Chihuahua plates, Chihuahuas, Mexico, and people from Juarez, people cross back and forth, whatever, riding around. And I'm like, so is it going to be now that if you're not speaking English and you're speaking Spanish, that they can just stop you and take you in for quote unquote, supposedly, like, oh, you're an illegal, what have
Yeah,
you.
that's exactly what's going to happen in 2025 if Trump
Yeah.
wins. He's going to
Yeah,
deputize
exactly.
Yeah, he's
And
going to
so
deputize local police officers to work in immigration. They're going to just round up everyone who doesn't speak English or doesn't even look like they're American, likely including black people.
I was going to post, because I have a lot of friends that here where Chris goes, there's only like 2 high schools here on the west side where I live. And they have wealthy parents in Juarez. And when the wars were bad, they sent their kids here to protect them because they would, kidnap the kids of wealthy families to ransom or whatever. And I was thinking about, a post today. And, I was going to write, it was like, I know a lot of you have been here since 2008 because your parents were afraid for your safety and your life. So they sent you here to be safe from the violence. It's like, however, I see some of you posting negative shit about people coming from Central and South America who were fleeing violence and wanted to get their kids to safety. So, how does that make you different from them? I fucking have more respect for them because they fucking trekked 3,000 goddamn miles and, fielded off violence, not knowing what was going to come, but trying to get their kids to a place they felt was safe. You hopped across the bridge. You didn't come here the right way, as they like to say. You came here the privileged fucking way. So what makes you fucking different from them, your parents, because they just hopped you across the goddamn bridge right here because they feared for your safety. These parents feared for their kids' safety and went through saving every fucking nickel and dime that they've made over the past 2-3 years just to get their kids here. And then you turn around and turn your nose down at them.
Yeah, they're a bunch of Clarence Thomases, man. They they get here and get into a position of privilege, and they want to make sure,
Yeah.
um, no one else can
Absolutely. And
follow the
like,
same
and
path.
there's kind of a unwritten rule. Like if you invest like $250,000, so it could be a house, it could be a restaurant, because we have a lot of restaurants that originated in Juarez that are here, like the same companies and brands, that you get a visa
Oh, really?
automatic. Yeah. Yeah. Like it's not, but it's a, kind of a unwritten, unspoken rule. And I'm like, you're coming here, and then when you say, oh, we gotta, our taxes have to pay for illegal immigrants going to public school. I'm like, bitch, you went to public school. Like you went to Franklin. Like you
these
went to like,
these
you
same
know?
people.
So yeah. So I was like, trying to formulate like the kind of tweet that or post on Facebook, because that's where most of the people that, I know here are on, but wanting to like, you need to really fucking sit back and think about this shit. Like you're saying this, and it's like, motherfucker, you're only here because of this and because your parents had the money to you, but you're driving a BMW to school and you're hopping back and forth and you had a house. It was like you got people who fucking had no assurances of what they would face when they got here, but for the same fucking reasons that your parents did, but we're able to just fucking send you here over the border. Like, you need to, yeah. So I've been thinking on that for like the past few days, like, and how I'm going to word it. Cause I know like a lot of them, are my friends, and on Facebook, like to put together a post to like really make motherfuckers take a step back and think about that shit.
Yep, just the inability to have empathy for other people who were once in a similar position. That's just wild, man. Just I
Yeah.
don't understand. Just makes no sense to me. But so there, Trump's not done facing legal challenges here, even after his recent conviction in New York. As we have some news out of Wisconsin, they're cutting the cheese, so to speak. Wisconsin Attorney General Josh Cowell filed felony forgery charges Tuesday against three Trump co-conspirators who helped submit paperwork falsely saying that Trump won the election in the state in 2020. The indictments named Kenneth Cheeseborough. You might be familiar with his work with the fake elector plot. He's also
How
been,
apropos.
yeah,
Cheeseborough and the
yeah. Jim Troupis, another guy who was in Kenneth Cheeseborough's orbit, and also former Trump aide Mike Roman, 50. He's age of 51, who also delivered the fake elector paperwork to Pennsylvania Congressman staffer in order to get them to the vice president on January 6th. You might be more familiar with Mike Roman for being the cause of the delay in the Georgia RICO case by
yeah, he's the one that precipitated the
the hearing involving
bullshit
Fonnie
against
Willis,
Fonnie.
and her relationship with special prosecutor on her team. But uh, they face one felony count each that is punishable by up to 6 years in prison and fines of up to $10,000. And to date, that brings the grand total of fake electors or individuals charged in the fake elector plot to 18 in Arizona, 19 indictments in Georgia, 16 indictments in Michigan, 6 indictments in Nevada, and as of Tuesday morning, 3 indictments in Wisconsin. And this is, again, along the lines of Cheeseborough having faced 7 charges in Georgia. He reached a plea agreement and then he began traveling across the country to the numerous swing states in what appeared to be an attempt to cooperate in order to avoid prosecution. People had been saying that he might have possibly reached some kind of cooperation agreement to escape indictment from the feds, but I typically feel like when the feds have cooperating witnesses, at least those who are co-conspirators, they charge them with something and have them plea out in order to get a cooperation agreement, similar to the Michael Cohen situation. So the fact that he's finally been indicted in another state outside of Georgia probably lends to the idea that he actually wasn't in a cooperation agreement with the feds. But I mean, I guess anything's possible. But it's just ironic, though, that after traveling across the country and talking to prosecutors everywhere, then we had indictments in other states pertaining to the fake electors, Arizona, for instance, and now in Wisconsin. I'm glad things are moving along. But one key takeaway from this is people think that after last week, after Trump's conviction in the New York hush money election interference trial, they're like, all right, well, that's it. We're not going to see any more trials until the election. Nothing else is going to happen for the next 5 months. And I'm like, that's not how this works, folks.
Yeah.
So while we might not see any of the other trials go forward in terms of like DC, with the January 6th trial, Florida with the documents case, Georgia with the RICO case, it's still entirely possible that Trump faces even more indictments. Arizona's still an option. Again, Wisconsin here is an option. We'll get to it later, but Michigan might be a potential venue in which he's charged with some kind of election interference.
Well, you know what? But the thing is, like the fake elector cases, they're huge, but everything has been focused on Trump because, he's not named in these indictments and these charges. So everything's like kind of been focused on him. So it has been kind of pushed or put in the background as far as the fake elector schemes. Like, these are a big fucking deal.
Yeah.
And they should be getting more amplification and, a spotlight on them in the media.
Todd, that's why we talk about them. Because no one else will.
But yeah, but they should be, but of course, everybody wants to just focus on Trump, but not
the grander scheme and all of his co-conspirators.
Yeah. And I think I really think about when people talk about Jace tapes and they're like, that was just these, it was, they were just exerting their First Amendment rights, or whatever bullshit they come up with. But I think it needs to be more amplified of the entire conspiracy as a whole.
Yeah, the massive scope.
Yeah, like the whole story.
Yeah, people
like,
want to focus on Trump to the detriment of all the things that Trump had his hand in. And I think the way to talk about it is like you have to talk about the massive scope and all of these details, but also tie it back to Trump. Yeah. And I think so. One of the other things like that just nobody ever talks about is like, hey man, you know, members of Congress were also involved in this plot. You know, like
that part.
like
that part.
forging the fake elector documents alone wouldn't have been enough to get Trump back into the White House. If the plot had succeeded, you had a number of people who were aware of the plot in Congress who, I mean, not only were involved in behind the scenes in planning of the fake electors, but making sure they got to Congress on January 6th in order for them to vote on the fake electors as opposed to the legitimate electors in order to get Trump back in the office. Like, when are those indictments coming? Now, I understand, and we talk about this all the time, at least on this podcast. Actually, to be honest, I think I was the person who brought it up in the first place. Why hadn't Jack Smith indicted any of the members of Congress who were involved in this plot? And obviously it was because, you know, the DC indictment was designed to be as sleek as possible. So in order to ensure the highest odds of it going to trial before the 2024
no
election.
I mean, I would have started at least. I mean, I know there's 147 of them. They should have never been seated for one, but whatever. But
yeah, well, that takes
I
a
would
vote from
start
Congress
with the seditious six that asked for pardons.
Yeah,
and
work your way
go
out
from there. Like, why you need a pardon? And go from there. Like, it's
yeah, I think so. Like, obviously, the idea with Jack Smith's team was get this trial off before the election, but I think they missed the opportunity to charge members of Congress. And, you know, of course, that likely would have delayed the trial until after the election, but that's where we're sitting at anyway at this point, given the Supreme Court and their ability to step in and kind of delay things at will. But the opportunity they missed out on was cooperating witnesses. I mean, it's entirely possible if you charge a few members of Congress and maybe you get one or two cooperators.
I mean, you've got staff who were there on January the 6th, frightened for their fucking lives, barricaded in offices. Like,
I mean, it's entirely possible. Yeah, it's possible some of them are cooperating, right? So
no, absolutely, because I mean, these were, you know, you've got, and I am sure, I have zero doubt. Yet so many of them, you know, they get this job, intern, staff member, whatever. Like, oh my god, I want to work for this congressman, whatever. And then that shit happened.
Yeah, and they're like, I didn't sign up. And they're like,
I didn't sign up for this shit. Like, I'm just trying to get my foot in the door, like on Capitol Hill, you know. Like, that would no doubt. I mean, if you can get Hope Hicks to fucking testify against Trump, you can get a fucking low-life staffer to testify against Andy Biggs. Okay.
Well, so to take it back to the Mueller investigation, like, I know we weren't podcasting at the time, but you know, I follow that closely. Mueller's investigation had been going on for months, and come to find out, you know, like individuals like George Papadopoulos and Mike Flynn had pled guilty and been cooperating for 2 or 3 months before the information was ever even made public. So it's entirely possible that Jack Smith's team and, you know, Merrick Garland before him have induced a number of cooperators, and we just don't know. And
yeah,
I'm not saying necessarily that involves individuals who were like charged with sealed indictments and then ended up pleading guilty and becoming. There might just be witnesses. There might just be cooperating witnesses and not necessarily co-conspirators. But you got to think of like just the number of hands involved in making sure all of this, like to ensure that the scheme.
They thought that they had all of their bets hedged.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we got the Supreme Court here. They had the fake electors. They had all hands on deck.
Yeah, well,
And they
let's dive
still
into that
fucking
for a second. So they had the fake electors, and they were like, "Well, maybe we can get Pence to just certify the fake electors, and that'll solve the problem." Boom, Trump's president again. And then they were like, "Well, let's say Pence won't he won't certify the fake electors, but he can decline to certify any of the electors because the fake electors offer him some plausible deniability, and we'll just delay it out, and Trump will stay in the office after January 20th." Because we won't have certified any of the electors, and they'll kick the election back down to the state legislatures where they had control. But if that didn't work, they had the attack on the Capitol to try and delay things indefinitely, and the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers had this plot to make sure that they occupy the Supreme Court as well. So not only could Congress convene to certify the electors, the Supreme Court couldn't meet to do business either, and they were going to surround the White House and make sure that Trump couldn't be. So they had like all these branching plots to ensure one way or another that Trump stayed in office. And
Yes.
like the
And they
problem,
still fucking failed.
yeah, that
And
well,
they're salty as fuck about that.
yeah,
Like,
part of the reason they failed is because they didn't expect Nancy Pelosi to reconvene at the joint session of Congress to certify the vote on the same day. Because they thought once they had the delay, they were like, "Oh, if we can put it off for one day, then we can put it off for as many." And then Pelosi got them back and got everything in order. And Republicans couldn't get enough of their cohorts to sign off on delaying the certification any further. But um, just like the problem with a massive criminal conspiracy, when you have hundreds of people involved, and at this point you've already got 60, 70 some odd indictments here. um like there's so much fucking evidence, like there's too many people who know about the plot, so there's too many threads investigators can pull, and that's how you end up seeing this many indictments, and we probably got a lot more to go. And as that pertains to Trump here, his legal challenges aren't over, they're simply just beginning. And we could be in a situation where when November comes and it's election day, Trump is charged with crimes in all of the swing states that he needs to win. He could be charged in Georgia, in Pennsylvania, in Wisconsin, in Michigan, in Arizona, like all of these states that he needs to win in November. He could be facing a criminal trial, and that's not good for his electoral chances. I mean, obviously, we want the law to be executed, faithfully and not based on, any kind of political bias. But these things do have a political effect, and that's largely what we discuss here. But speaking of Trump's ongoing legal issues, I'll let you tackle this one, Ty.
okay. The state of electors in Michigan, as part of
That was a play on words.
preliminary examinations for 6 Republicans whose names were submitted as fake electors in Michigan, Captain Michigan State Police Captain Darren Green said Friday that he had been interviewed Thursday by an FBI agent and 2 U.S. prosecutors from Washington, D.C. Green was at the Michigan Capitol when a group of false electors attempted to enter the building on December the 14th, 2020, to present their documents to the Michigan Senate. Green said that the subject of the interview Thursday was the fake electors. And we all know that Michigan GOP is a goddamn shit show.
In numerous ways.
Just prior to Green's testimony, an agent for Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel's office testified that he had outstanding subpoenas or search warrants for information as part of an ongoing state investigation into the false electors certificate, saying it's still an open investigation. Okay. The agent, Howard Schock, said that Trump was considered an unindicted co-conspirator, but as of now, there wasn't enough evidence to recommend charges against him. He's part of the investigation, but he hasn't been charged with a crime yet. Yeah. Michigan,
Yeah.
fuck off.
So, more importantly than the state charges that Trump could possibly be facing is the fact that we have just yet more confirmation that while the feds haven't indicted any of the false electors in any of the other states, they're looking. And people have been wondering about that. I mean, I specifically have been bringing that topic up for months here. Like, what is Jack Smith doing, right? Everything's done behind doors. The investigation didn't stop once Trump got indicted. Like, it's continued. And what are they looking at? Well, clearly they're looking at the same thing a lot of these states are. This fake elector plot and the individual fake electors, and probably the middlemen in between who helped organize like the gathering of the fake electors to get the signatures to have them certified. Like Michigan was crazy. It was one of those states where the state law requires the fake electors to like have their ballots certified at the Capitol, the state Capitol, and they were like trying to sneak in and shit. And this particular officer who testified in this hearing was one of the ones who was like, "Hey man, the fake electors are already here. Y'all, I mean, the real electors are already here.
What's
You
it?
guys
The
are what?"
Michigan GOP, the same ones where they had like a meeting with the GOP and they kept out some people and a motherfucker was kicked in the balls and then like
Yes.
rushed in through the door, broke down the door, rushed in and like
Yeah, that was the
tackled
one.
somebody like to the ground and
Yeah, it looked like one of those World Star videos
like
from back
the
then.
Royal Rumble. Like
It was wild. But yeah, just it's great to have some confirmation that the feds are looking into this because clearly, like as I was saying, there's so many people involved between like if the fake electors are at the bottom of the pyramid and Trump is at the top, like there's so many people in the middle that no one's there's just been no attempt it appears to have investigated or charged or and like I don't know what the media is doing. Like where did investigative journalism go? Like we had all of those January 6th committee hearings that pointed out all this information about all these Congress members who were involved. Like no one does any fucking reporting. No one's digging up. I can't believe how in 4 years we know so little, at least in terms of new reporting about all the co-conspirators. But I mean, I guess, Jack Smith's on it at the very least. So that gives me some level of comfort. Man, we just need some more progress on this. Like the problem is with the 2024 election is the people who were involved in the 2020 plot to overturn the election are still in office and they're probably plotting some way to try and steal the 24 election. So you got to indict the motherfuckers to make sure
facts.
that they don't engage in any more shenanigans. Otherwise, like who knows what could happen in November.